Cool. Thanks, TJ and Sophie, so I can see both of you. Okay. Please read the syllabus. Okay. But I'm not going to go through all of it. So there are two things to pay attention to on the syllabus. The first is sort of the concept statement for the class that I was really just sort of describing. And without reading it, like in a nutshell, this is an area that I've been working in the last 4 or 5 years now. It started out with a think tank associated with MIT and this hospital in Brooklyn called Montefiore. And what we really started looking at is, can we take kids that have been confined to a hospital room? And if you think about who that might be, it's opioid addiction. It is kids undergoing chemotherapy. It is sickle cell anemia. These are often kids that are in a lot of pain and a lot of distress and can't leave the confine of a room for multiple weeks at a time. Right. So the premise then, and there's a lot of, we're not really doing this stuff on the scientific medical side because we don't have the expertise there. We have expertise as designers and architects. But there is a lot of evidence first that the level of distraction created by VR is enough to overcome pain medications. And the idea of being out and exploring, leaving the confines of something small and kind of terrible like a hospital room. I mean, not that all hospital rooms are terrible, but let's be real. They're crappy. I would say 95% of them are just really crappy spaces to be in. Being out and exploring in depth, right? If you're really out and exploring, your synapses are firing in your brain, your endorphins are kicking in, and all those things are directly related to healing, right? And we know, like, I am not saying VR is the replacement for going outside, although on a day like today, maybe it should be, right? But it's not. I am not. If you're thinking Dave has had too much of the Kool-Aid and he is all in on VR is going to replace the real world, I think that's ridiculous. I genuinely think that that's ridiculous. But I think it is an incredibly interesting new form of media consumption and creation. I think I've been calling it third screen, right? So we've got our screens, laptops, TVs. You've got your mobile device, phones, which sometimes they're like the size of a small screen now, but those are essentially windows into the internet. I think this is the third screen that's going to be in everybody's life. And certainly it's going to be not the size of the big bulky things that we have now. It's going to be our glasses, for sure. And we're not that far away from it just being glasses. But do I even what Apple is selling, like, okay, this is going to replace your workspace? No. That's awful. I do not want to wear that, or even if it's something as light as my glasses, I do not want to be wearing that all day. But as something that creates immersive environments in a way that we've never been able to before, absolutely that's a thing. And I hope all of you, I'm assuming that all of you have done something in VR before. If not, here in a couple of weeks, that'll be one of the first things we do with a bunch of you, is getting you in some different experiences, and curated experiences, not just shooting zombies, but like some curated experiences so that you can like understand the potential. Okay? So that's really what this class is about. But the idea, especially for the architects, I'll get to you in just a second, but for the architects in the room, a lot of this is going to apply to how you present to clients, right? That's my end goal for you, right? So we're not going to spend time doing a lot of coding or anything like that, right? This is going to be the same thing that we do is going to apply to any kind of pitch that you're going to be doing for a project at any phase along the process, whether you have the project or whether you're going after a project, right? The idea of making something that isn't just stills, because I'm sure almost all of you have worked in offices now, you guys know we don't print out billboards professionally and present them like we do here in school. We do that in school for a reason, but that's not how you pitch professionally. Professionally, it's on a screen. And some of you have probably been in pitches or design scenarios where you're showing animations and interactives and those kind of things, maybe. but that is definitely where it's headed, right? And so that's the bigger picture. I mean, that is the key takeaway that I want you all to have. Whatever we're doing here in VR translates to a two-dimensional screen or whatever, but it's making a thematic, cinematic experience out of architecture, right? So that is the takeaway, right? I don't want you to think that, well, once I leave this class, I've never going to do anything medical for kids in a hospital, and that all that information is lost, right? And that's just not the case. When I was practicing years ago, lots of years ago, we would get project after project after project because we would come in with a movie. We would come in with a short film. And it was whether it was incorporating live action and shots and then three-dimensional animated scenes of how the building and construction was going to play out so that we could like really tell the story of what we thought their design should be, or all that. I mean, we got so many projects from doing those kind of things because we could do it really efficiently. And that's bigger picture of what I'm really teaching you guys, how to take an architectural idea or a space or a location and turn it into film, right? It's just our primary film output is VR. Cool. So that's what this is about. The course description, which I'm required to have, it's got to match. It's talking a little bit about technology and sustainability, develop and apply advanced analysis, employ advanced appropriate communication, and additional LOs, additional learning objectives, which are these right here. So those are customized to this class. An understanding that it takes to create immersion in virtual reality, real-time 3D software, understanding of how to communicate design in a narrative format. And that's what I'm talking about, being more filmic, making a movie, right? Adding the score, adding a voiceover, adding something so that it's not just a couple of images, but it's something that plays out more like a movie, which is where we get into the whole documentation thing. So we are 10 to 10:50, typically we are 10 to 10:50, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And for sure, I do think this is important right here. I do not have 3 hours times 16, whatever, 48 hours worth of lecture material to provide for you on this. And none of you want 50 hours worth of lecture on this content. There certainly are going to be lectures on it. But my guess is that for many of you, somewhere around the 1/3 mark, so very early in the semester, are going to switch to Monday or Wednesday or Friday with assignments to complete Wednesday and Friday and work time to be close to this space, but in your studio space, Wednesday and Friday. But this is going to be such a pitch-heavy, presentation-heavy class of your work in progress that unless, like Ben, if you want to come in for 2 hours a week and watch other people present their work, it's a lot, right? It's a lot where those could be 2 hours where you're moving forward on your own project. And that doesn't mean I don't want you all to watch other people's presentations, but I'd rather have you in like groups of 5, right? And we have a cohort of 5 that's watching those 5 presentations for the day while my other 10 or 15 are someplace else getting work done, right? So we might touch base at the beginning of class, but we'll have to figure that out as it goes along. It just depends on how quickly we can get through some of the first couple of things. Cool? So it's going to be unusual how it meets. And as much as anything, it's because I want you guys to have plenty of time in class to work. Because, I'm sure it's the same way in computer sciences. But, I mean, architecture school, every hour matters. Every hour matters. So our project, creating a doc-immersion, right? That's the big picture. It breaks down into this group of pieces, okay? And this is where the main reason why I wanted to meet today and get this recorded is get all of you launched on your pitch deck. Okay, so a pitch deck is, that is a standard film term or a standard business term for that matter too. A pitch deck is basically where you say, this is what I think I want to do, right? Non-academically speaking, a pitch deck is like really intense. It's got everything broken down everywhere. Academically speaking, there's a series of things that I want in your pitch deck, okay? So it's a synopsis of your doc-immersion. Done in PowerPoint. I'd use Google Slides if I were you, because ultimately, you guys know me, you're going to build a Google site. I mean, you can use something else if you want to, but I wouldn't. I mean, you could do Wix if you want it to look pretty, but I don't care if it looks pretty. I just want the content. I want your content to look pretty. I'm not evaluating the website. So I'd use Google Slides so you can embed it really easy into a Google website. But you can use PowerPoint if you want to as well. You just have to make sure you have to go through the extra steps of then getting the PowerPoint online. So I'd use Google Slides. An introduction to your project. Specifically, what you want to do to make your project different and distinct. Okay? This is what I'm doing. This is what's going to be different about it. And I have some previous projects for you to weigh against so you can kind of wrap your heads around what these look like so you can start understanding that. 3 project variables. Okay? So here's the thing. I have done this class before. This is sort of my 3rd time to do this class. The first time, I was a total jerk. I was like, you will do this and this kind of project, and you'll do it this way. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The second time I taught the class, we had teamed up with Mental Health Services out of Brooklyn, same hospital, Montefiore, and we were given a series of conditions and a series of artworks, and they became design projects. And so I was really nice and kind and happy and free-flowing, and the projects weren't nearly as good. Yeah, they weren't crappy, but it takes a long time to learn the content, how to build these. And if you're trying to turn it into a design project while you're trying to learn how to build these things, it just doesn't go as well. And so I'm going to go back to being a jerk and say, no, you have to pick a building or a space or a place. And ideally, that is something that's architecturally relevant, right? Ideally, it's something, I'll pull up example projects here in just a little bit. But I mean, it just goes so much better. It gives you a lot of content. Like, you can study this space. Like, what was the architectural idea? And if this was the concept behind it, you can use VR to break down the idea and present it in a way that an 8 to 18-year-old can wrap their head around it, right? So it becomes a really interesting and challenging writing and speaking assignment for you to build these things, right? It just works so much better. And that way you guys can focus on delivering the content and focus a lot less on how to design a space that's going to work well within the medium. Cool. That also opens it up to, hey, I found a model of the Guggenheim. Is it okay that I use that, or do I have to model it myself? What are you, nuts? Use the model, right? Give yourself a month of your life back so we can do more content. Use the model. So that's part of finding these spaces, right? You could model, like, let's say, a Mies project, Mies van der Rohe. He's super simple stuff, right? But not super simple. But you can model a Mies building, especially one of the small ones, Barcelona Pavilion. I mean, that's an afternoon, right? Cool, model it. You can find like 40 different versions of Mies's buildings in 3D online anyway. But you could totally model that on your own if you wanted to. But something like the Guggenheim in New York, it's the one that spirals up. Men in Black, Will Smith running up the thing. Okay. That's the Guggenheim, right? Yeah, no, that's a month. You're going to spend a month modeling that dude, right? So no. Cool? You guys kind of with me? But we need to see 3, right? Because as you're pitching this to the class, and we'll spend time going through the pitch decks, right? As you're pitching these to the class, what you might think is going to work great, you might get insights from myself and your peers like, no, that's going to suck. And what you might think is going to suck, you might say, that's going to be amazing because. And so we do want you to find 3. And so in your pitch deck, I found a model for it, and so I think this is going to help, or I think I can model it quickly. So that is where we're getting into your key assets, right? So these are things that I think I can accomplish, and it also gets a little bit into your biggest challenge, right? Vibe and score. Right, so you guys know vibe, right? How is this going to feel? What's it going to be like? You do not have to find your score yet because Jury has a service. We have a music service that we use where we have thousands upon thousands of soundtracks for free. Well, it's not for free. The university already pays for them. It's the athletic department that pays for them. Thank you. Say thanks to them sometime. But like when, what's the kid's name? It's not Brian Shipman. Why did his name leave it? Kid with the red hair. He's amazing. The videographer. What's that? Bobby Hearn. Yeah, thank you. So he taps into it all the time, right? For all and we use them for promotional videos, all that stuff. But guess what? We have access to all that stuff too, right? But it takes a while. It'll take you several hours to scour through that. Mainly, it's just like, as you're working, as you're discovering, oh, I want to do this location. I want to do 5 Points, New York, and do something there. And on the square, we're going to populate it and make it feel this way, and it's going to have an Alicia Keys songs to it, right? That's your vibe, and that's the soundtrack that you want to build with it, right? We can't use Alicia Keys because we can't afford to license her music and sync it, right? And it's not a one-time use. We're using a sync use, which means it goes on forever, and it's designed to enhance the product that we're creating. That's really expensive, y'all, but we already have it. But if we know Alicia Keys and we know this is the vibe, we can find something that fits that mood, right? So that's kind of what's in your pitch deck, okay? Biggest challenge, typically a pitch deck would also have all your team members, your budget, your marketing plan, all that stuff, but we don't need to do that, okay? Because our marketing plan is in Kids and our distribution is in Kids, all that stuff, okay? So that is your pitch decks are due. I believe I put that in the website. Your pitch deck is going to be due September 4th. Okay? So that's in 2 weeks from today. And if you're like freaking out, like, oh, that's a ton to do, it's not. Don't take it that seriously. This should be entertaining to you. Okay? If you're not throwing stuff at the wall. I said stuff, by the way. I almost went the other direction with the word. But if you're not throwing stuff at the wall in this pitch deck and just like being amused by what may or may not stick to the wall, then you're doing it wrong. Entertain yourself in terms of building this. You are not building. You're going to build plenty of PowerPoints for Sarah and Sandra, right? Take those seriously. Your research had better be on point and astute, and your observations on and at MARC level. And not that this isn't MARC level, but this should be entertaining, right? This is what you do when you need to take a deep breath. Like, let's work on Dave's weird thing for a bit, right? This is simple, right? I don't need flashy transitions. I don't even need a good theme. In fact, usually themes in PowerPoint and Google Slides suck. Just worry about the content. Go back through your memory, go back to the places that you've been. Things not to do, just from history, they don't work as well. Like, don't pick a building on campus. Well, I was at an office and they did this really cool project. I want to do one for them. It needs to be kind of globally relevant, right? It needs to be something where if you don't recognize it, you should, right? And that also doesn't mean we're going to tackle like 8,000 rooms of the Louvre, right? But if you wanted to do the Mona Lisa, and don't do the Mona Lisa room, but if you wanted to do the Mona Lisa room of the Louvre, that would be cool, right? We could start bigger picture with the Louvre and what it's like and what the entrance is like, and then boom, click, we're in that room. That would be cool, right? So think those kind of things. Yeah.
Can we do a sports stadium of our favorite team?
If, and this is a big if, it is spatially relevant. VR is a spatial medium, right? So if you've got something like a part of a stadium or something like that is universally recognized as an amazing or brilliant space, I would buy it. So you should totally put it in your pitch deck, but that's what we're going to see. That's what we're going to weigh it against.
Okay, I was thinking like maybe they would like to experience what it's like to be on the goal line of an NFL stadium or, right behind the play of the baseball game or something.
Pitch it, but make it spatially relevant, right? And do understand, so like your biggest challenge would be, can I populate the field in such a way that makes it convincing? To which my immediate answer would be in a semester, no. But can you overcome that by doing it in a certain way? Cool? Good question, Nate. If that was Nate. I think that was Nate. So that is your first assignment. And again, this is 4 hours, y'all. 4 hours. If you invest more than 4 hours in it, you're doing it wrong. 2 weeks, 4 hours, okay? I'll be very available via email while I'm gone. I shouldn't say very. There will be times where I sit down to do 2 hours of email, right? And that's wherever I have Wi-Fi. My wife she's getting a global plan. It's like $10 a day per phone. And so like we're only doing that on one of our phones. Those of you that have done foreign studies know this already. Yeah, no, we're only doing it on one of our phones. So yeah, I won't be available via phone, but should be available anywhere where I have Wi-Fi. After the pitch deck, we go right into creating storyboards. So storyboards are basically where you break down shot by shot what you anticipate to happen. And we start testing it. The storyboards go into an animatic. That's where we start putting our score to the storyboards, and we see how it plays out with timing. And what I'll tell you is in VR, everything moves slowly. Everything has to move slowly. And it's not just because VR can be really nauseating if you don't handle it correctly. But if you think about the last, oh gosh, cinema has changed. Film has changed so much in the last 3 years. I used to always be able to say, like, watch a movie, and I want to see how high you can count before it changes camera and camera angle, right? It used to be 5 seconds in a movie. Avengers. Go watch an Avengers film. Go watch something out of the Marvel universe, okay? Probably won't count past 10. It used to be 3. After MTV happened in the 80s and early 90s, they changed it from 3-minute, 4-minute shots down to 3 seconds. And it was like you would sit in a theater, you couldn't count to 3 before the camera angle would change, the shot would change, right? Filmmakers have started rejecting that notion that people are stupid and won't pay attention. And so like there was I haven't seen it yet, but there was that one World War II film where they shot the entire thing with one camera and tried their very best to make it look like it was done with one take. And the camera didn't change for an hour and a half. And it's supposed to be amazing. I haven't watched it yet, though, because I spent all my time doing this stuff. But that's changing. I mention that because when we create the storyboards, you no longer have control over what somebody sees in the same way that you do when you're presenting something on a two-dimensional screen, right? You have to give people enough time to look around and absorb their surroundings, okay? And it's a very different way of doing and presenting things. And I do think, and it's very spatial, which is why I am very, very much convinced that this is how we're going to present and meet on a lot of architectural work, even after things are built. Because it is a spatial thing. So that's our animatic. And all this stuff is somewhat working in parallel, too. Sort of understand that we're working all this stuff in parallel. For instance, like the storyboards, I know some of you can freaking draw like nobody's business. I know that. I've seen all of you work. I can draw okay. I can be my drawings are cute, right? If I need to do 30 images for a storyboard, I would much rather have my 3D assets in place and be doing really quick renderings and building storyboards that way. John, I'm guessing you're in that camp too.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. So when you see these things, like there's a bunch of different ways to accomplish this, right? So our animatic test, then we move the animatic into VR. So we're starting to test the mode and the pacing in VR, and then final VR film. And that is 50% of your grade. That final VR film usually happens exclusively in terms of production. Like a lot of it's like happens in the last 3 or 4 days of the class. But understand it's the entire progress of all those things add up into that final VR film. Right? So getting those things done well and like making positive changes from your animatic to the final film are what's going to help you get a really good grade on that final film. Right? but we don't have time to like edit the animatic 5 times. It's going to be, here's the changes to make sure those show up in your final. Cool. Requirements. How many of you have, and I've got a little more than half of you. Quick show of hands and quick yeses or nos. So how many of you have the Adobe Creative Cloud or access to the Adobe Creative Cloud? Cool. So everybody in this room but one. My Zooms. Okay. Who doesn't have? So I've got one in the room. How many people don't have access to Creative Cloud? 2. Okay, so it just looks like 2. So probably a few more. I would say 3 or 4 of you. You have, oh, it's here, and there's a chat bot. Oh, that's Nate. Yeah. Okay. I am not going to require you guys to get Creative Cloud for this. Okay. Premiere works exceptionally well. Adobe Premiere works exceptionally well for everything that we're going to do. Premiere is an NLE, non-linear video editing software. So if you have the full Creative Cloud, grab that now and get it installed. It looks something like this, right? So here's all these little pieces that I'm doing. So my daughter draws dragons, right? So essentially, we can take something like this, and Premiere is designed to work in VR, right? So any of these moments I can do, and I can also see how it's all going to play out in VR, straight out of Premiere. It's really expensive. I get it. I mean, I don't know what it costs you guys, like $350, $360 a year. So if you don't have that in the budget, the other option for you to look into is called DaVinci Resolve. And DaVinci Resolve is free. And it is really, really good. As of my last use with it, it does not have native VR. So you end up editing things in their stretched out format, which you just kind of get used to seeing, which looks like this. Right, so that is the unrolled, the flattened out version. And you can totally do that in DaVinci Resolve, and it's free. And there are parts of it that I like way better than Premiere. But I'll have a couple of workshops for you guys. So take the next couple of weeks and decide, do I want to get access to Premiere? They do have like a 30-day free trial, but it's not going to be enough for the semester. So you just kind of need you guys to commit. And I have no problem sort of teaching a little bit of both. But I just want you, like, if you're a Premiere person, you don't want to be here on a day that I'm doing Resolve. Cool. Man, I'm like already 10 minutes over schedule. Let's go back to this. Let's close that. Grading, yeah, duh, you guys know that. Read through it. COVID, guys, like, it's still going on. And it's really like, if we should have learned anything through the pandemic, it's that people make other people sick. So if you are not feeling well, for God's sake, don't come to class. Drop me a note, say, I'm really sick, I'm sorry, I'm going to miss class today. I record like this. I record almost everything. And if I'm not recording that day, I will record something special for you. I don't know how many of you guys lost somebody due to COVID. I did. I lost somebody really important to me during COVID. And it's not just COVID. It could have been the flu. It could have been RSV. It could so just like take care of everybody. You guys, I can't believe that we hadn't learned that beforehand. So just don't. Now, if you abuse my leniency on that, and I don't really see it as leniency, then we'll have a conversation. Like, if you're missing 3 classes out of 3 classes a week, it's not good, right? But I mean, really, if you're not feeling well, don't come to class. Late and incomplete work. These deadlines are going to be really weird because they're all over the place. Because when you guys do your pitch, it's going to be 5 to 10 minutes a piece, and there are 22 of you, right? So we're going to start working through that as of September. This one's tricky in this class, okay? Because you're going to be using a lot of sources, aggressively using a lot of sources. And it's not like sourcing something when you're writing. This is very different. You're going to be using other people's artwork, whether it's score or 3D modeling or texture maps or any number of things. right? So we need to be very careful as you're finding assets. You need to make sure you are writing down or creating a folder or a Word document or something so you can cite everything. Because again, if you present the Guggenheim in VR, I'm going to know that you didn't model the Guggenheim in VR, right? And I'm going to want to see the source. And the source is going to need to show up in your VR presentation. Okay, so really, I trust all of you. It's not that I'm like somebody in this class is going to be a cheater. This class, we need to document our work because this stuff is going to go out to the wild professionally, right? So we need to be really careful about documenting our work. Mental health support and student needs and Title IX. I think all of you know our university policies on those things. Please read through them. Main thing is, guys, it's me, it's Dave, right? If anything's going on, if you need help with anything, or if I say something stupid, like, please talk to me about it. And I would hope that all of you know me well enough to know now that I would not say something stupid intentionally to be a jerk, right? But all of us, I mean, I have to talk a lot. I mean, it's my job to talk 15 hours a day. If I don't say something stupid once every 15 hours, then I'm not talking all 15 hours like I usually do. So please, just like, if I trigger something or something, just please talk to me. It will not affect your grade. It will not hurt my feelings. I want to learn. I want to be better, right? That's my attitude on it. Okay. And like I said, hopefully you guys know me well enough to know that it would never be intentional, ever be intentional on something like that. I use email like crazy, you guys, as you've already learned. So please be checking your email for me. I can use Teams. We can use Slack. But it's just like one more thing to have open on my phone constantly. So typically it's email for me. Okay, so just make sure that you're staying on top of it. You're checking your email, all that stuff. Right here underneath resources. Underneath student links. I'm sorry. All of you, I need, in the next 2 weeks, you need to build a website. When you do your pitch, it needs to be coming from your website. Okay. The very first thing that I linked in here was this set of projects that I was super proud of, right? So these are not the design projects. These are the projects that I want all of you to watch, get familiar with, because these are, there's some bad examples in here, but mostly really good examples. So like, let's take a look at Claire. So in here is everything from the storyboards. The pitch decks are not in here, but let's do... Where is Claire's final? So storyboards. So Coliseum was Claire. Tester. Where's your final at? Let's open this up really quickly as well so I can show some of the final work. Wrong website. There we go. Final projects. Let's look at the Acropolis. So this one also really, really good. So a lot of these, your final output, YouTube actually does a pretty good job with VR. So there's 360 YouTube videos. So I'm going to skip a little bit more to the middle of the Acropolis. So this is a series of stills, is how we were building these, and there are a couple of options. Lisa providing the voiceover. Lisa Griffin, if you didn't know Lisa, she graduated 3 years ago, I believe. So she would have been, for your 5th year, she would have been, guys, 2nd year, 1st year, she would have been a 5th year. But you can see how this starts to walk you through, provides narration, and it even starts modern day on a street corner, and sort of guides you up and through it. And at a certain point, it like really does its best to reconstruct and be more like what she thinks it would have been at the time of its original creation. Right? So that's more of a history one. Pulitzer Art, Emily. You guys all should have seen that by now in St. Louis. Pulitzer Art, it's amazing. Ribbon Chapel is really cool. The Guggenheim, yeah, that's why I kept referencing it. Natalie Goose, Pantheon, Kimball, Farnsworth. Let's see here. This one's excellent from Ben Reentz. So it's a more modern take. Reindeer Pavilion. But some of the things, architecturally speaking, that I do want you guys to focus on is like how good we can build environments around a building. Most of you are always still very focused on making the building look great, and you don't get a lot of time to spend on the things around the building, the context. That's where you can like really ramp up that skill. So Ben on this modeled all the background, the mountains, the grass, the rocks, to like really make this thing feel like the location. So it feels really, really immersive. His project theme was all about perception, how the box breaks down to these interior forms, which are really organic, and then he moves you into the interior forms, and then does a lot of things with depth of field to change where you're looking and to drive your focal point, which works really well even in VR. But those are the kind of projects. So I want you to take time to go through these student websites, which are linked right here from the class website. Just explore a couple of the projects to get a feel for what these end up looking like. I always feel like if you know the end game, you can design a better process to get there. Cool. The one that I did in this group, I'm going to link this page in there as well. So I did Thorn Crown as well, and tried to do some weird stuff in there too, create a construction scene, do a little bit more with diagrams, things like that. So make sure you take a look through them, and just sort of understand what's going on with them. Let's go back to the class website and lectures. What was I supposed to cover today? Software and hardware. So if you don't have a decent gaming laptop, I don't know how I got this far in the program, actually. Don't know how I got a second year without a decent gaming laptop. So I'm hoping everybody does, but do understand the one that we have in the XR lab here is good and getting a major upgrade. We're going to rip the video card out of this, which is a 900, NVIDIA 900 and something, so it's like 8 years old. We're going to put an NVIDIA 4000 in it, so this thing's going to be screaming really, really soon here in the next 3 or 4 weeks. I will have my Quest 2 available. The Quest, and I was going to get you guys a Quest 2 in here, but the 3 comes out in like early November is when it's, and I can't spend $400 of you guys' money when a $500 much better thing is coming out immediately after. It just doesn't make sense. We've got to wait for the Quest 3, but hopefully we'll have that close to the end of the semester. But in here we do have an original Rifts, and we have an HTC Vive that we're going to set up in here as well. So you guys will have access to it pretty much 24/7. Yeah, I'm going to hold off a little bit on what makes a good dock immersion. I think I've talked a little bit about that. And then my last thing was the AMXRA, Los Angeles, and money. So I am part of the AMXRA, which is this right here, which is the American Society for Extended Reality in Medicine. They've invited us to form the first student chapter, which would be kind of cool. And with that would be a really good opportunity to go to the SGA here and say, yeah, we'd like some money to help what we're doing. For travel and for hardware and for whatever you guys think you might need and what. So not making any requests right now, but obviously would be the faculty sponsor for that. But just something for as you guys start thinking about this, here in the next 4 to 5 weeks would be one of those things that I've been on the receiving end of a lot of those pitches, so I know how to help you guys put them together. I think it'd be something really cool to do. Obviously, for architecture, I think this matters. If you're in computer science, I think this could really, really matter. Because again, this group is like looking for computer programmers to hire in the VR space like crazy. Cool. So questions? Yeah.
So just to make sure I kind of like got down like the general timing of what we're doing. So this first couple of weeks, for most of people in classes, just start jumping into experimenting a little bit with like VR
Hmm.
and how to like set up scenes and whatnot. And then we start working on the pitch itself for this final project.
Um, both in tandem. So the pitch is coming September 4th is when I want to start having you guys, we'll start signing up for times to do the pitch on September 4th. And it's simply going to be, I think I want to do a project this space or this building or this location on the planet, something like that, right? That's your pitch, right? And again, 3 options in there, right? So we're going to do Barcelona Pavilion or we're going to keep them all in Spain. Grata Familia, or give me something else in Spain. I don't know. I'm out. Yeah, right. So you're doing something like that, right? And this is, I want it to be this kind of thing. I want to look at it through a series of diagrams to help understand the design, right? Like one of the really cool things Natalie Goose does is she takes the Guggenheim and unrolls it right down the street that it's on in New York. So you can like look left and right and see how much exhibit space was created by Wright by making the spiral. We didn't talk about the bad stuff as well because it's kind of ridiculous as a building. But yeah, it's a really cool effect that when we saw it 2D, we were like, oh, that's neat. And then when you see it in VR, you kind of freak out because you realize the thing stretches like a half mile in both directions. And you really get it when you see it in VR, how many linear feet are in that museum for exhibit space. It's really innovative, right? Of course, you can't hang anything on the walls, but yeah, it's neither here nor there, right? It's a museum. But that's the pitch. And again, these are just quick ideas. We're throwing stuff at the wall. We want to see what sticks. The reality is you might end up not doing any of those 3 as you dive into it. You might find something better, but still has the same vibe, still is going the same direction. So from there, as you're building these things up, the key steps along the way, the writing, the storyboarding, that helps you record your voiceover. It helps you get your score in place. It helps you understand your sequence. And it's really no different than writing a paper. You go through your ideation and like, what are the topics that I'm going to work on? You create your outline, you refine your outline, you do your first draft, and you do your final draft. Right? It's the same kind of thing. It's just this is visual and spatial. Shouldn't say it's visual, it's because it's spatial. You might be very different. We'll chat here in just a bit. For good. Other questions, Zoomies, other questions? Share. No questions from the Zoomies?
Nope, not here.
Okay, Dave, I'm sorry, but I got
Hey,
a
Allison.
little lost on the schedule. You said you're going to be out of country, so like, what does that mean for when we're meeting for like the
So
beginning?
we will not meet until. I really should have been. That it's not that you didn't follow that, Allison. I did a terrible job of sharing it. September 1st will be the first time we actually meet as a class. September 1st. I will get that, Allison. I will get that in an email and clarify it. You all are welcome to use the class during this time, if you'd like to, or share ideas or whatever. But yeah, no, I will be completely out of the country. I fly back. My flight back starts on Wednesday the 30th, but it's a 2-day flight, so I won't be back until the 1st.
Thank you.
Absolutely. And so that gives us a chance to meet and discuss, and then the pitches start. And my plan is that the pitch decks will happen 4th, 6th, and 8th. Yeah.
So besides Premiere, what other software are we going to be using?
So John's question, if you didn't hear that on the Zooms, what software are we using? So you can kind of use whatever software you want, right? What I'm going to be teaching aggressively, your 3D modeler of choice, I would suggest Revit, right? Because there's no reason to not brush up on the Revit skills. But hopefully you're doing very little modeling. Hopefully you're able to primarily find a model of what you want to do, right? So there's that, but typically Revit has been our go-to model of choice. Some people it's been Rhino or SketchUp or whatever. Right? I'm comfortable helping you out with wherever you want to go with that. Next is Twinmotion. And I would say the bulk of your work is going to be in Twin. If you haven't downloaded the latest version of Twin, it's really freaking good, you guys. If you haven't used it for a year, the latest release, the 2023 release, is on Unreal Engine 5, and it's freaking great. That gives you access also to thousands upon thousands of assets, and I'll be covering all that stuff early in the semester. So what you learned in second year, it is light years ahead of where we were. And we'll be looking at rendering out panoramics, getting those to VR, and then eventually rendering out 360 movies and getting those to VR. We will touch on where some of this stuff is headed, and that is not rendering it out anymore, but sending it directly to VR. Okay, which is what Dan specializes in from computer science, by the way. So one of the reasons why Dan's in this class, for many reasons, but graphically speaking, the fidelity for us as architects isn't there yet for us on typical headsets to go directly to VR. It's just not. I mean, we need things to be represented as if they're really going to play out. And I don't mean photorealistic, but it needs to look like, it needs to have a level of fidelity and realism that current headsets are just not capable of achieving without pre-rendering it out. But we'll talk about that gap, because that gap is dropping super, super fast.
Hey,
Cool.
Dave,
Yeah.
I might have missed this part, but you mentioned that we're going to be in groups just to kind of streamline the review process and
Yes.
making sure we look at other people's work. When will those groups be picked? Are we making those ourselves, or how's that working?
How I anticipate those happening, Nate, is like if 4 or 5 of you choose historical things, right? Like the last group that I was showing you, we had the Colosseum, the Pantheon, and the Acropolis. Those naturally grouped together. We had a group of 3, and this is in the realm of possibility also. We had a group that was really interested in the thermal baths by Zumthor. Yeah, Peter Zumthor. Thank you. And so 3 people went in and all did that project together, but they went nuts on it. I mean, they pre-rendered everything out. The water is moving. There's like steam everywhere. They modeled the entire environment, the Swiss Alps, to get to the thing. I mean, it looks like 3 people worked on it. So that is like, if you want to team up with a few people, Nate, that's in the possibility as well. Just understand, I'm not going to give you 3 grades. If you team up as a group of 3, I'm going to give all 3 of you the same grade. Because what that does on my end, and this is super selfish, sorry, but if like, well, they didn't work very hard on this project, I'm going to say, I don't care. This is the product you created. The product gets that grade. Off you go. Manage yourselves. Because frankly, I deal with enough of that in studio. I'm not going to deal with it in this class. Right? And so realize you're committing yourself to that. If somebody in your group sucks, yeah, you're going to have to, I'm not going to give them a C and everybody else an A. Right? If somebody doesn't work at all in the group, sorry. Yeah, it's a terrible thing to say, but that's the way it's got to work. Because there's just not time to pick through all that stuff. And that prevents you guys from like grouping up if you don't want to group up too. But it's possible. Nate, I don't know. What I would say is the one cautionary thing with that is please don't schedule something else around it. Like don't say, oh, I don't have to be to class on Wednesday and Friday, so I can schedule more work hours or something like that. Please don't do that, because there are going to be times where I need everybody in on Wednesday or everybody in on Friday. And it won't be often and it won't be, without notice. But yeah, I want you guys to make sure you're committed to being here and working here during those hours. But yeah, probably the groups will self-select. And if not, by project type, by personalities. Hey, we work well together.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Would it be a good idea to maybe pick a project that we have relatively easy access to, like a nearby significant building. That way we could get firsthand digital video and like pictures and stuff like that to help with our project. Would that be helpful?
I don't think it would be helpful, but if it interests you, yes. And I do have a 360 camera that goes directly into VR as well. So if it is something that you can drive to and visit, I can absolutely send you with the schools. It's called an Insta 360. I can send you with that, and you can actually capture 360 footage as well. So you can start looking at merging real footage with pre-rendered footage, all that kind of stuff as well. But it's absolutely not a requirement. I mean, it's almost one of these things. I would like for you guys to really have fun with exploring different times, different locations that maybe you can't travel to any other way other than through VR. There's something really fun about that notion. But that said, Nate, if you have some really interesting ideas of how you can put those two things together, I'm not going to stop you from doing it for sure. So, like Nate, if you had access to the Chiefs practice in Arrowhead Stadium and could be on the field, that could be how you could overcome merging an end zone VR experience with, right? Should be
I
hard
wish,
to do,
honestly.
but maybe, we'll make some phone calls for you, right?
Maybe I'll get tickets or something and I'll go watch a game.
And you can take the 360 camera with you. Just don't lose it. Yeah. So again, pitch it, and we'll see. Again, we'll use the group as your test to see whether or not we think it's going to resonate.
And just to reiterate, we're pitching multiple ideas, like
Give
three,
me three.
4 ideas. Okay.
Yeah, three.
I do have a question about like the sites, like how do we set those up? Do you have like instructions in that?
For Google, the Google Sites,
Yes.
I can do like in 5 seconds. I can show you how to do it.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah. Do you have a Gmail account? Yeah, then you're already done. Yeah. It's super easy. Like I don't teach stuff if it's hard because technology is too hard anyway. So I try and keep that stuff super, super easy in terms of output. And John, did I answer your question? Software. So there's Adobe Premiere. There is Twinmotion, like the bulk of your work's in video editing and in Twinmotion. That's going to be the bulk of our work. And then the other piece, let me go back to screen sharing. This is a pretty expensive piece of software. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's something I think your offices will want to get that you're in, called 3D Vista. And essentially, this is where I put images together. It shouldn't take too long to run a preview here. But 3D Vista is where I can take a series of 360 panoramics that in this case, I've animated and put them together and make them nonlinear. And I don't know, this would be me sitting down with each of you and doing this one-on-one with your projects, or you spending $1,000 for the software, which frankly I wouldn't recommend. But this allows me to create hotspots. And essentially what I'm doing, I'm moving through 40 different short films to do this. But when you're in the headset, it's completely convincing that you're actually moving through the space. Because if you think about VR anyway, you don't really want to move somebody in VR very much because you get sick really, really fast. So this has things moving around you, and your head, your turning is what's moving. Our primary audience usually confined to a chair or a hospital bed, so they're not up and walking anywhere, right? So we don't want to do that. But this, so this triggers all these different events. In this case, it's a really, really great piece of software. It's actually done for real estate.
Dragon here, Spinner,
that's what it was designed for, is to do 3D tours of houses. We've just redeployed it as a game.
He does not like slimy.
So, I'm reworking this to happen in Unreal Engine so that we can port it as a game to anybody. This is a little bit more difficult to distribute, but a whole lot easier to use. So, and it's really, really cool and super fast. So that's the other one, but it's not required. If you look at the previous projects that I have posted, all of those, the output really was a 360 YouTube video. In the 360 YouTube videos, if you use a Google Cardboard, there was one in here someplace, I think it's on the cart, or even a Rift or a Quest or something like that, all of those go straight to VR, but they're linear experiences. You don't get to interact with them. You don't get to sort of, I want to go this way or that way. They all just begin in it. Target time length is like 5 to 10 minutes. We're not going to make a 30-minute long film. We'll lose the kids anyway if we go that long. 5 to 10 minutes is the sweet spot. Over 15 minutes, and we actually start negatively impacting kids under 18. We start getting into some dysmorphia, and we start getting into some beyond emotional displacement, some physical anxiety displacement, and those kind of things. So we start running into some negatives. So this isn't about, here, kid, put this on and wear it for 2 hours. And I don't know, maybe it's just me being old, but like if I'm more than about 30 minutes, like it affects me in some weird ways. Like I will like overtouch my phone. Like I won't be able to hit the buttons right anymore. Just feels remarkably unhealthy when that happens. But it's not good for me. So like I'm like 15 to 20 minutes, and then I'm in the real world for a while. And I've got a whole lecture on building this stuff too, by the way, and what it was. So yeah, I'm now 10 minutes. I'm like 40 minutes over my suggested time. Sorry, guys. Cool. That's it. I'm going to kill the recording. So if you wanted to ask something